Yeah, I'd like to call the meeting of the Salem-Keizer School Board on March 10th, 2015 to order. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please, Christy.
Rick Kimball,
Here.
Nancy McMorris Audix. Here. Chris Brantley.
Here.
Jeff Aville.
Here.
Jim Green.
Here.
Paul Kylo.
Here.
Chuck Lee.
Here.
Under agenda modifications tonight, we have 4 modifications. We've modified consent calendar item 4B1. You should have a copy of that in front of you. Also, the consent calendar item 4B2 has been modified. That should be in front of you. And we've added consent calendar 4B4. There's 2 parts to it, 2 parts to Part B, a stapled section with several pages and then a single page. Okay? So those are our changes for modifications for tonight. Next is Spotlights on Success. Superintendent Perry.
Our first spotlight will be presented by Karina Lee from Salem-Keizer Education Foundation.
At this time, I would like to invite Principal from South Salem High School, Laura Tiffin, and Volunteer of the Month, Mr. John Piper, to join Chairperson Kimball. The Volunteer of the Month for March is John Piper. John was nominated by the entire South Salem High School staff. John can be found any day of the week, at any time of the day or night, working on the grounds of South Salem High School. Principal Laura Tiffin stated, "Without fail, when I'm working on the weekends, John is sprucing up the outside of our school." John has pretty much adopted South Salem as his community project, and they feel fortunate as he donates countless hours to the school. John rakes leaves, he picks up trash, he sweeps the entranceways, he picks weeds, he removes branches, and he even mows the grass. He works with the custodial staff to properly dispose of whatever it is that he's been picked up. Principal Tiffin says there isn't enough gratitude nor enough sacks and gear to thank John for all that he has done to beautify the grounds and help the students realize the beautiful grounds that they live in at South Salem High School. Congratulations on being named our Volunteer of the Month.
Our next spotlight will be presented by Jay Remy, Communications Director.
Thank you, Superintendent Perry, Chair Kimball, and members of the board. If I could have the representatives from Salem Badminton Club and Principal Tricia Nelson please come forward and join the board chair and the superintendent. Our community partner of the month is the Salem Badminton Club. And from the club here tonight, we have Sharon Moore, Norio Foss, Olga Lavidnia, Bendo George, Alina Yurchenko, Doris Van de Koppel, and Nitin Joshi. The Salem Badminton Club is our community partner of the month for March. The club was nominated by the staff from Waldo Middle School. The Waldo Middle School community welcomes the club as partners and appreciates the uniqueness of the membership brings to the school. The club has about 30 members spanning a wide range of ages and represents 12 different nationalities, which mirrors the diversity of the Waldo community. Salem Badminton Club started using Waldo's gym in 2006 because the gym was the only one they could find with regulation badminton lines. Since that time, they've become more than just renters at Waldo, but partners with the school, the staff, and the students. The real community connection is seen through their acts of service that extend beyond the hours of their court time. Roles normally filled by staff and volunteers have been filled by club members, freeing Waldo staff to focus on the matters of teaching and learning. Members of the club pick up school bell shoes on a regular basis for students who need them. The club has supported Waldo's choir by dedicating 3 hours every week to provide the teacher and students with a professional pianist to accompany the classroom and at all concerts. Club members can be counted on to help with supervision during assemblies or activity fairs or running an event. Countless hours were donated this year as the club members scored all of Waldo's volleyball games and pulled the chains at all the football games. The Waldo Middle School community appreciates the support of the club in a mutual endeavor to provide its students with a safe, enriching, and comprehensive education. So thank you and congratulations to Salem Badminton Club as our community partner of the month.
And our last spotlight will be presented by Melissa Cole, Director of Middle Schools.
Superintendent Perry, Chairperson Kimball, and members of the board, we'd like to recognize tonight Ellie Andrews, a student at Crossler Middle School, and with her tonight is her principal, Chris Walton. Congratulations to Ellie Andrews, an 8th grader at Crossler Middle School, for winning the Salem-Keizer Education Foundation Essay Contest, Why I Love Oregon. Ellie's essay was selected out of 29 entries, but submitted from 6 Salem-Keizer middle schools. The contest, held in February, provided student writers with the chance to share their opinions to audiences beyond the classroom. Giving students an opportunity to test the power of words and to witness the impact their writing can have on others can be seen in Ellie's essay as she expresses her creative side. One can easily visualize her description of Oregon's skies. She writes, "If Oregon was a person, she would be known as unpredictable. One day the sky looks like fluffy cotton candy, then the next day it's orange creamsicle. Other times it looks like Skittles all melted into each other." Salem-Keizer Education Foundation surprised Ellie and her class with a Valentine's Day party Friday, February 13th in honor of Oregon's birthday. Ellie also earned $529 in college savings account from Oregon College Savings Plan. Congratulations, Ellie.
Chair Campbell, can I ask a question?
Yeah, Chris.
I just wondered, is that essay posted anywhere like on the SCEF site or on the district site?
The answer is yes, it's posted on the SCEF site. Okay.
Okay,
Thanks, Karina.
like to read it.
Okay, next on our agenda is audience communications on agenda items, and nobody has signed up to speak on agenda items. And is there anybody who wanted to speak on agenda items? I don't see anyone coming forward, so we will move on to our action items. And I'll turn that over to Superintendent Perry. We have one tonight.
Right, we have one action item tonight, and this is the charter contract renewal for the Jane Goodall Environmental Middle School. In your board packet, you have the entire contract, and this has been reviewed by legal counsel and reviewed with the Jane Goodall Middle School. The new 5-year contract maintains the 85% ADM funding to the school and adds language regarding state assessments results tied to the goals and evaluation guidelines in the contract. And then the entire contract is attached. It is recommended by the District Charter Review Committee to approve the charter contract as revised for the Jane Goodall Environmental Middle School Charter for a 5-year term beginning July 1, 2015 and ending June 30th, 2020.
Nancy.
I move acceptance of the charter.
Second.
renewal.
Jeff had his hand up. I'm going to take Jeff's second. Any discussion, comments?
Mr. Chair,
Jim?
I just had one. I was talking to Director Kylo before the meeting. If you ever get the opportunity to go out and judge the kids' work at the JGEM school, it is a great opportunity to see the work they put in each year. If you ever get invited, I highly recommend that you go. It's great to be there and watch these kids do their They culminate the year with a presentation they have to do. They have to be graded on it. I think there's 3 or 4. There were 4 the time I went and did it. They also have to have, beyond their oral presentation, there's written presentation. It's really, really an amazing thing they do out there. So I would just encourage board members or anyone, if you get the opportunity, go check out their year-end program. It's really neat.
Thanks, Jim. Jeff?
I've talked with a parent from the JGEMs, and she said that she was thrilled with it, and that it's done a great job with her students. So,
All right, we have a motion and a second, and the motion is to approve the renewal charter contract for the Jane Goodall Environmental Middle School charter. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. No opposition, it's unanimous, Christie. Okay, that's our single action item. Next is adoption of consent calendar. And on our agenda tonight, we have one business item, and under personnel, we have 4 action items. Any items here anybody needs to pull tonight?
Yes.
Paul?
I would like to pull 4B2 and 4B4 Part B. And I just have a question on 4B4 Part B.
Okay, so 4B2 and 4B4 Part B. Okay. So we have 2 things pulled, so the consent calendar has the remaining 3 items. I'll entertain a motion to
Move
regarding-
adoption of those items, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Second.
Adoption by Jim, second by Paul. We have items B, 4A1, 4B1, and 4B3. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No opposition? It's unanimous. Okay, 4B2, contract approval for Assistant Superintendent Ken Parshall.
Just vote.
Okay,
Distinct vote.
okay. On item 4B2, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we accept the contract for Assistant Superintendent Ken Parshall.
A second by, was that Chuck or Jim?
Chuck.
Chuck. Thank you, Chuck. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so we've got 6 ayes and 1 no. Christie? The motion passes. Item 4B4, Personnel Actions Part B, which there's 2 segments to it. There's a
Right.
multi-page and then a single page, right?
I would move adoption or acceptance of 4B4 Part B, but I want to ask a question.
Okay, go ahead.
My question is, I guess this is from the superintendent. It says under 1. My question is the number 122, does that refer to the number of folks in items 6, 7, and 8? And if you look at number 2, does that refer to the number of people in 3, 4, and 5? And if you look at item 9, does that refer, there's no numbers there, and that's administrators, and that would be 10, 11, and 12. And so I was curious if,
Where the numbers line up?
yes.
Yes, and
And
so-
how many administrators do we actually have that we're renewing? So-
Okay. And I'm going to ask Ken, do you have the answer to those?
Sure. Number 1, you say that there are 122 that are being extended. Are those the folks listed in items 6, 7, and 8? Does that equal 122? I didn't have time to count them.
I believe that's the full contract status part-time.
But we have all these names. Are those the names? That's my question.
No, we don't list all the names for our contract
Okay.
status teachers, so we just give you the total number,
Okay,
Paul.
that's great.
For
That's good.
example, in
You
number
answered-
2,
You answered my question, that's great. And then on number 9, it's the same, it'll be the same thing. You just didn't, yeah, because they're the second year, that makes sense. Great, I answered my own question, thank you.
Okay. So do you have a motion?
I made it, I thought.
Second. I second his
Okay,
motion.
moved by Paul, second by Jim to adopt 4B4 Part B, both segments of that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. No opposition. Passes unanimously. Okay, that completes our consent calendar for tonight. Next is going to be readings, and we have none tonight, so we'll move on to our reports. We have 2. One is our EL report and another strategic plan report. Superintendent Perry.
So I'm going to start with our executive limitation 9, asset protection. This is the 9th of 12 monitoring reports scheduled for the 14-15 school year and is designed to provide the board with information to determine if the superintendent is meeting the criteria established within the adopted executive limitations. And this is related to our asset protection. And as we have looked through our asset protection policies and procedures, we are finding no evidences of non-compliance. And so my question to you is, do you have any questions about this report?
Chris?
I just didn't understand some wording, I think is my only problem. Under 4, it says acquire, encumber, and dispose of land without approval of the board. And then under evidence of compliance, it says the district is currently
Yeah, there's-
reviewing 2 proposals to install at Hayesville and South Salem High School. I don't
Cell
understand.
towers. There are 2 missing
Oh.
words. I missed those. Cell
Install
towers.
cell towers.
Cell towers. Yep, sorry about that.
Gotcha.
I should have
Okay.
highlighted that when
That
I
makes
was
some
going.
sense.
Any other questions or comments on the report on EL 9?
I just have one, Mr. Chair. I'm always, I guess because where I sit in my professional life, I just want to make sure that, one, since we are a self-insured school district, let's say we had what happened at Woodburn. One of our high schools catches on fire. There's an insurance trust that provided that service to them. What happens if one of our high schools catching on fire? How much would we have to come up with out of pocket to fix a high school that burned down? I mean, I want to make sure, one, we've got enough in reserves to do that. Two, that we are meeting what our risk managers, who I'm assuming Mike and you work with on a pretty regular basis, to say, yes, you've got enough in those accounts. I just want to make sure that if we had some catastrophe happen here, we're protected.
Correct. And Mike, can you answer those?
Sure. For property loss, we would cover the first 500,000, and then our excess coverage, catastrophic coverage, would kick in. So it would cost us 500,000 in that scenario if a school burned down. And we do have audits annually for each of the components of the risk fund to make sure we've got enough in reserve for the identified risks.
Additional question, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Jim.
So I'm looking there under number 2, where it talks about excess insurance. That's our reinsurance, is that what that relates to, is the Genesis insurance and the Travelers insurance? That's the reinsurance above our 500,000?
Yeah, that's our excess.
Okay.
Above the 500,000, or whatever the particular, for instance, liability loss, you see that that's up to the tort limit.
Sure.
And workers' comp is up to 600,000. So these policies kick in after our self-insured fund takes care of those dollar amounts.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, this is a EL report. I'm looking for a consensus from the group on adequacy. Okay, I'm seeing all thumbs up. That's good. All right, next is our strategic plan report for this evening.
All right, I'm also taking the strategic plan report tonight. This is on the Early Learning Hub and the instructional framework for early childhood education, and to collaborate with our community partners. And you have quite a bit of information here, but I'm just going to do a little bit of backtracking. Remember, Early Learning Hubs were a strategic investment, and in Marion County, we have a nonprofit, Early Learning Hub, Inc., that kind of is the catch basin for early learning in Marion County. Currently, Early Learning Hub, Inc., I'm a member of that board, so I keep a pretty close watch on the early learning work. And we're in the process of doing a unification with Polk County. So hopefully by June, it will be Marion and Polk counties together on Early Learning Hub. As part of their initiative, they've identified catch basin areas in Marion County. We have 9 of the catch basin areas in our community that are what we're seeing as the place where the kindergartners don't come in as ready for school than in other areas of our county. So when we look at our kindergarten readiness assessment, the kids in our catch basin areas come in about half as prepared for kindergarten as kids across the state and kids across other parts of the county. So those are the areas we look at. In your previous early learning report, you were given some updates about preschool. Those preschool programs are still in existence. As we work into full day K, our goal is to keep those preschool programs in existence, although there'll be places and times when we need the space and they'll have to move. So this report primarily focuses on what are those catchment area schools doing to begin working with the Early Learning Hub to do the outreach into the communities. So the biggest, 2 big things that I think are going to be critical is, one is we're aligning preschool teachers and kindergarten teachers, which makes a lot of sense, but it's one of the first times that's really happened. And they're talking about what can preschool do to prepare kids for kindergarten, and what can parents and kids expect when they get to kindergarten. So we're aligning standards, doing all that work, really healthy conversations. Stephanie Wetzel is taking the lead on helping facilitate those conversations in the 9 area schools. They're also doing some considerable outreach to parents in their neighborhoods, and they are also working with in-home childcare providers and doing some training for our in-home childcare providers as well. And that's probably the first time in-home childcare providers have been brought into the loop of being sure that they know that preparation for kindergarten starts at birth, really. So although this has been some difficult work for our schools, because these are also our schools that are really have a lot of other challenges, they know that this work is the right work, and the partnership with the hub has helped them pick up their head and have a few resources to help with this. Nancy and I were talking a bit about what kind of data will we see from this. And I think what you don't have here is a lot of data yet. The Early Learning Hub is doing a really good job of collecting that data around what's happening within those catchment areas. And the goal would be that the kindergarten readiness assessment scores would rise in those catchment area schools over time. The Early Learning Hub is watching the state legislature closely and advocating strongly that the early learning work continues. It is one of those strategic investments that has started, that it would be a shame to start and then have a full-on stop out of the legislature. But again, that's going to be their choice in the next in coming weeks. So that's the report on Early Learning Hub, and I'll entertain questions.
Any questions of Superintendent Perry? Chris?
Actually, I have a couple. One of them has to do with the third bullet, I believe, in your report says you provided a community training available to all child care providers. I was just wondering what kind of a turnout you got for that. And if you have any idea what percentage of the preschool kids you impacted with that training.
I don't have the numbers at the top of my head, but I know it was a good turnout. I believe that's the one that they did at the public library, and there was quite a big turnout. I'm thinking there was 35 to 40 child care providers, which I think is a really good turnout. So I remember the day after they were really thrilled with the turnout. And I believe that the Early Learning Hub has calculated that with here's the number of providers and here is the numbers of kids impacted, and I can get that to you.
Yeah, I just think that it'd
That's
be
a good-
interesting to know how, I think this is something that's going to grow over the next few years, and it would be interesting to know where we're starting, I guess is
Yep.
the way I asked that question. The other question that I have has to do with a question that I've asked a number of times of different people that have come before us, and I'm just looking for more information. I had a chance to sit with Megan Irwin, who's the director of the Early Learning Council, and talk to her about sort of the messaging that came out last year around the kindergarten readiness test and what I call the tyranny of the 100%, meaning that everybody thinks we ought to be able to get 100% of our children to that kindergarten readiness number, when in fact we get evidence from early learning specialists that says that due to developmental problems, I wouldn't say it as a problem, but just differential developmental rates of kids, there are some that will never pass it until they're a little older and they've gained some more cognitive ability. And I was just wondering if you could help us understand that a little bit. What kinds of things do kids gain the ability to do when they're 5 and 6 years old that some of them may not be able to do when they enter kindergarten, but probably develop the ability to do it as they go through kindergarten? Can you give us any,
Yeah. So let me give you a really big, high-level answer to a big question.
that's
Okay.
a high-level
So I think if we stay squarely focused on we're going to get 100% of our kids to that kindergarten readiness target, that's probably too pointed, because there are some kids who, if there's any writing as part of that, have different fine motor skills.
So that's one of the
So that's
things that develops right then?
Right, but if we think about literacy and language in the home and all those language skills that we want, that, the kindergarten assessment test measures one little slice. I don't think anything that is our movement through early literacy would be anything that any one of us would not want to see in every home. And that lots of language, lots of reading, lots of books. Now, whether kids come reading already is not the point, is that they have all the foundations to be ready to take off when they're ready to take off. Does the kindergarten readiness assessment exactly measure that? Not sure. But if we're really keeping focused on what do we want in homes and childcare providers and preschools, it's that all kinds of language, because what we know about kids who don't have a lot of books and languages in their home is that they come to school with a significant disadvantage in language ability. And so we want to build the foundation so that they can take off when they're ready to take off.
Okay, and it's that, the part that I was asking if there was any easy answer to, and obviously there isn't, is it really difficult to describe readiness?
Yeah.
You know, what is it that happens to 5 and 6 years old that makes them ready that they may not have been ready before? So, you know, I don't want to push that too much tonight, but that's just sort of something that would help me understand that stuff that you hear, or I'm hearing anyhow, about.
But if you think about readiness, and does a kid know what a book is, what a
Right.
book looks like upside down,
That you
some
read left
beginning,
to right.
that you read left to right, that's all readiness.
Yeah.
And kids come with varying degrees of readiness, but without any of that, or with significant chunk of that missing, that means they start from a really different spot than a lot of our kids. And that's the mark we need
And
to
I'll
move.
just share with you that what you said in your presentation is pretty much where the group of us that were sitting and talking when Megan was there, was that we shouldn't be actually expecting 100%. What we should be doing is looking for community schools where a significantly lesser percentage are getting there than other places. And that those are the places where we need to put some resources,
Right.
because obviously there's something going on there that's retarding
Which,
some kids.
which is just how we've done it with our catchment area schools.
Good,
Yep.
good thing, I think.
Jim?
So my only question is, and you don't have to provide it to me tonight, but at some point, in that strategic plan, we talk about collaboration with community partners. I'd like to see a list of who we are actually partnering with in the community.
Okay. I could start the list, but I would miss it too.
Yeah, just, you can have staff get it and just email it out in the courier or something like that. That would be fine, but it's just a question. I've seen that in the strategic plan before, and I just wondered, who do we have targeted as those community partners? Thanks.
Any other questions? Nancy?
So when I think about early childhood and early child care providers, I think that we have a big segment of our community where grandma is caring for the child, or auntie is caring for the child, or mom is caring for the child, none of whom think of themselves as child care providers. So what kind of messaging do we have to the community that is helping us to reach all of those parents? And I don't really have any data to support it, but I think in our lowest income areas, the density of that kind of care is higher. And secondly, what are we doing to make our elementary schools an inviting place so that neighborhoods view them as places to come, and to, you know, that this is a place where resources are, maybe having libraries open, or, you know, what sorts of things could happen in those areas that would really help those preschoolers have the tools they need to be more ready.
So how about this? Let's let these 9 catchment area schools get through their work this year, and let's think about a report back on some of these things in about June, so that we can really capture those, because I know those outreaches are there, and I know the piece of that is getting preschoolers in sooner and making sure that they really feel welcome and connected as part of that school. Because it's easier to do if they have siblings. It's not so easy to do if they have first. And so I know that's also part of their work, but I think it would be great to see the whole picture of that and have more detail around this, if that's acceptable to board leadership.
Yeah, that'll work.
I have another question.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Is the 9 catchment areas 9 elementary schools?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And they're partially funded, they're kind of a couple different funding streams, so that we're all, bring it all through Early Learning Hub.
And when they did this community training for childcare providers, did they say you're only allowed to be here if you care for children in these 9 elementary areas?
I don't think so.
So do we know if it had an impact on those 9 catchment areas, or do we, you already just said we're going to bring back all this information, but I'll just keep asking you
Keep
questions.
asking, I'm just gonna keep taking down the questions. But yes, all across, and yes, we would have that detailed information of how it was impacted, is my sense, because I know they kept a sign-in sheet and all that.
And one other comment, it's not really a
Go ahead,
question. We have children, we probably have very few elementary schools where we have no children who arrive unready.
Correct.
Boy,
I know what
was-
you're saying.
But that had a lot of negatives in it. So as we learn from this, do we have any sort of plan for how to spread it out of those 9 areas to other, to the next 9 neediest, or to eventually get to all 47? Or
That is one of the goals of the project, and one of the hopes of early learning is that because each of the 9 schools is slightly different, is that we take the promising practices from those schools and help other schools implement the same promising practices. So, and what might work at one school might not be quite as successful at another school, but again, so that principals and schools who didn't participate have a menu of some things that they could work from. So that would be the goal. And as we roll out to Polk County, it will be, I think it will be different strategies, because it's really a different community.
Thanks.
Jeff?
Just a curiosity question. Do we know from our own district whether or not students who start in preschool versus kindergarten versus first grade, which ones come in more ready on average, like percentage-wise?
I think I could guess at the answer, but I don't want to guess at it.
Okay.
And I think there's other factors besides just did they attend preschool, whether it helps them be ready. And it's going to, let's say you don't attend preschool, but you have a really engaged family in reading and literacy and numeracy, that would be different than a student who didn't attend preschool who didn't have that. So I don't know if we could nail it down exactly, but we could look at what has happened in our preschools and our tuition-based preschools versus non-tuition-based.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion on this strategic plan report? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to information items. You should have in your board plate a list of our upcoming meetings. Note that next week, we're going to have our work session at the Career Technical Education Center, starting at 6 o'clock. And that work session will involve a tour of the facility. Again, that's a week away. We won't meet the week of spring break, okay?
And keep in mind, it is a construction site still, so you would want to dress accordingly for a construction site. Don't wear your high heels.
Darn.
I know.
Looking down here.
I looked right down the
All right, and then the next meeting after that will be our April business meeting, okay?
And Jeff has a question.
Jim said
Yeah.
to wear your hard hat on the job.
He said to wear it?
Jim Tokarski, yeah.
Okay.
All right, that's information items. Next is audience communications on non-agenda items. Mayor Clark, would you like to come to the podium and introduce yourself? And
Thank you, Chair Kimball, members of the Salem-Keizer School Board, and Superintendent Perry. It's my pleasure to be here tonight. My name is Kathy Clark. I'm now the mayor of Keizer. I took office in January of this year after 8 years of serving as a city councilor. I wanted to come here tonight to introduce myself and to let you know how Keizer is going to continue to move forward with working collaboratively with the school district in serving our students. I'm available to you as you find ways that we can collaborate. You know that education and serving our students is a top priority for our community. When it comes to volunteering to serve in our schools, to take care of our kids, we're there. And we want to be very much a partner with you in serving our students. So that's my whole agenda tonight, is essentially to say hello and to see if you have any questions. And I'm available usually by email, as Superintendent Perry and I found out today. A lot of back and forth. I do have a day job that is full-time, so sometimes I have to text back or email after hours. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for coming down tonight and introducing yourself. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anybody else who did not get a chance to sign up that would like to speak on non-agenda items? Seeing no one coming forward, we'll move on to board reports on activities in the last month or so. Jim?
So I've got three, Mr. Chair, if you'll bear with me for a second. First, it was a pleasure last Friday to be at the Capitol because the kids from McKinley Elementary presented House Concurrent Resolution 13 to the House Rules Committee. It's a resolution that commemorates the 100th anniversary of McKinley School. I guess the kids in the 5th grade class and 4th grade class did this as a civics engagement. So they wrote the language that goes in the resolution. Representative Brian Clem and Senator Courtney, who represent that area, presented it to the committee. It passed out of the House Rules Committee on Monday, and we are trying to work to get the governor to sign the bill at the school. So Annie Morton, her crew, they had 75 kids there, had the picture taken out in front of the Capitol. It was fantastic. A really good job by Annie and the kids from McKinley. I got to attend, because my son's going to be a freshman in high school, I got to attend curriculum night at the high schools, which is a pretty cool thing that we do in this school district that some other school districts are just starting to pick up on. But it's where you bring the 8th graders in and have them meet with teachers and learn about honors and AP classes. And I just want to commend Curtis and his staff, the principal out at Sprague, for the program they put on. It's kind of interesting to see the wide-eyed 8th graders come into the high school and see what they're facing, but Curtis and his staff did a fantastic job. And the girl who was here that wrote that Why I Love Oregon essay, Chris, you asked if it's around. I know it's on the SCEF website, but all the entries, I think most if not all, are on display at the state capitol right now as well, on big placards hanging on posts that identify the student and the school from which they're in Salem-Keizer. And it's only Salem-Keizer kids. So.
All right, anybody else? Nancy?
The governor now lives in the McKinley School District.
Yes.
I am only going to announce this because Jim would expect it of me. The Saxon girls and boys basketball teams are playing in the state tournament this week. One at 1:30 tomorrow and one at 1:30 the next day. Unfortunately, I have to work. So if any of the rest of you wanted to go and cheer on those Saxons, it'd be great.
You didn't mention their culinary program, Nancy.
I'm such a failure. They won everything at the state competition in the Pro Tech competition and are going on to nationals. Lots and lots of scholarship dollars for those kids.
Chuck?
I spent 3 out of the last 4 nights at the Salem Conference Center. On Friday night was the Salem First Citizen Award, and congratulations to Hazel Patton, who has just been a tremendous volunteer in this community, and most recently is working to redevelop the building right next to SCEF for the Salem-Keizer Education Foundation. And Hazel's had just a brilliant career of volunteerism in this community, and it's touched schools and our whole community, and so it was just a great night to see her become Salem's first citizen. The next night was the Green Awards, and Brenda Novlak from the Salem-Keizer Education Foundation, who's done some great things at Parish Middle School with aquaponics and other things, also was nominated for award. And then last night we attended a presentation that was sponsored by Corban University and Dick and Gail Withnell regarding public servant leadership, and it was very well attended and a great event, especially for people who are working in government and in politics in a servant mode rather than a paid mode. So I thought that would touch a string with all of you.
Thanks, Chuck. Anybody else? Okay. That's it for board reports for this month. We'll move on to superintendent comments. Superintendent Perry.
Right, I want to thank Chuck for going to the convention center 3 nights in a row, because all 3 of those were on my calendar, but I had to readjust for some other items. So I did want to make note that Governor Brown not only lives in the McKinley district, but she did come to Morningside and read a book to kids, and she was very engaging with the kids. The Morningside staff noticed that she was small in stature. I could relate to that. And she took the time to also look at our dental program, and we had kids getting sealants at Morningside that day when she was there. So that was a good visit from her. If we'll make sure to remind you of this, but on April 1st, we're doing the State of Career and Technical Education in the district. That is a joint presentation by Chemeketa Community College and Salem-Keizer School District. And the goal for the president and I is that we really highlight where we are with CTE, not only the Career and Technical Education Center, but CTE across all our high schools and the pathways to college, and really that partnership between Chemeketa and Salem-Keizer that's been strong for a long time. Another 2 kind of partnership items is we are continuing to be really close with Western, and they are really trying to help us with our bilingual teacher shortage and our special education teacher shortage. And we will launch a couple initiatives in the next couple months that I think will be the solution to the problem over the long run. And I think it's going to turn around some both bilingual and special education teachers with us. And then since the mayor is here, I just want to make a comment that we continue to be thrilled with our partnership with your police department. As you know, because you're a little bit smaller jurisdiction, we have the ability to work on a few things and try a few things out. And the chief and the staff and the judge have really worked with us on that truancy ordinance. And I don't know if we've said thank you enough, but I was talking to a principal the other day, and he's like, holy cow, we're just turning things out the door around on attendance. And he hasn't seen the results yet, but he says, I know we will. And so I think we're, again, landing on a strategy that we're piloting in an area that we can take other places. So thank you to Keizer for being willing to try some things out with us in that regard.
Go Keizer.
But we're in Salem, so I thought I'd really highlight Keizer tonight.
Okay, with that, I'm going to adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you all for coming.